Hello, and welcome back to Sharing a Chapter a Day. This is Do, Ra, me, and today I will be reading Chapter 99 of Engagement in Peril by Dara Odoe Sup. Chapter 99 is titled Boot Camp and Navy Basics. Navy Basics got me to open up somewhat, mainly and only with Shinshin around to give me reassurance that it was okay to talk about myself. After the tireless processing of the first day of boot camp, of urine tests, shots, eye exams, and paperwork for enrollment into military life, we were given a few hours of sleep. It was by sheer luck that Shinshin and I were assigned to the same barracks and company during that hot, humid summer of 1995. Our names were announced that very early morning after the sharp clanging and thumping of several large tin trash cans crashing against the wall and floor of the sleeping quarters to wake us all up. "Get the fuck up, recruits!" the RDC rudely howled and commanded. Most of us in our briefs and boxers snapped up to attention as though we were trained SEALs. Not one to be hasty, some new recruit took a bit more time to get to attention and ready for direction from the RDCs. Some scratched and rubbed at their scrotum, some even had a full erection from their sudden awakening, and some yawned and stretched as though they didn't have enough sleep, which was true. But then again, look where we were. We were all on our first day of Navy basic training then. Little did I know that someone was watching and following my every move there at the beginning of basic in Great Lake, Illinois, since the moment I was in line to piss my urine test that previous night. That stalker was you. It was you, Shinshin. Shinshin Nagami. He had been watching me as though I was some subject of interest to him. I didn't pay much attention to the names that were being called out and assigned but mine. The names were called in alphabetical order, and of course, Sock was toward the end, so it makes sense that Shinshin Nagami had been called before me. His name was unique enough, but I don't remember hearing his name at all. All I remember was Sock, Dara, 388. From that, I gathered my first day issue belongings and made my way to my company commander. We were waiting for the straggler to form into line that assembled outside atop the large, blistering, ceremonial blacktop. It was different for Shinshin. He remembered almost everyone's name and assigned company's number of those he had heard. Of course, before he had already made his way out of the holding building and into the company assembly line on the large blacktop. Outside of the processing building, he too heard his name. "Igami! Shinshin! 388!" as he mimicked the RDC while he told me of his observations of the dull, lost crowd of new recruits who waited to be assigned during that tiresome morning. We were both assigned to Company 388, one of the toughest and skilled companies to be in, if not the most determined group of recruits to graduate from basic that fall of 1995. After some time standing in line and not used to the constant standing at attention, my muscle in my thighs and calves were tightening up, almost causing me to collapse on my face. After all the recruits for Company 388 were assigned and all accounted for, we were then ready to head to the living quarters on the other end of the very large naval training base at Great Lake, Illinois. "Get your asses straight in line and shut the fuck up," one RDC demanded of us. "Here we go again," as I spoke softly to myself. "Here we go again." Another yelled out, "Let me see nuts to butt. Come on, people, nuts to butt, ladies. This ain't fucking gay. Get used to it now. Nuts to butt," another RDC yelled out. And the third RDC yelled out, "Pick up your damn shit off the ground and get ready to march. Attention! Ready? March! Left, 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 right, left, right," he sang aloud as he marched on forward toward the supply and issue building several blocks away from the processing center. While marching, about half of us struggled to stay in pace, some stepping on the person's heel that was directly in front of them, as we tried to march to the tune of the RDC cadence. "Shut the fuck up! Don't make any commotion or comment about the person stepping on your heel. Keep walking!" an RDC had loudly instructed. I had to jump up and down several times to keep pace and time my step to match the person in front of me. "Company, stop! God damn it, stop! You sons of bitches can't march for shit!" screamed the head RDC. We all came to a confusing stop, and after we reassembled ourselves in two straight lines again, the head RDC, Petty Officer First Class Edinbeck, announced, "Now listen up. I am only going to say this once. When you go in that building, listen to the people who is issuing the clothes and gear and give them the respect they deserve. If I hear one shit about any one of you talking back or arguing about your gear, there's shit to pay when we get back to our quarters. Does anyone hear me? Does everyone hear me? And do I make myself clear?" Almost in sync, we all hesitantly yelled back, "Sir, yes, sir." "God damn it! That suck ass, lady. If I were a sir, you think I would be here?" In disagreement, shaking his head. "I wouldn't be here. I have bars on my goddamn shoulder. Do you see any goddamn bars on my shoulders? I'm a goddamn first-class petty officer, and you should address me as such. You got it?" He harshly reminded and demanded again of all his new recruits. "Sir! Yes, petty officer!" Almost perfectly, all at once we corrected ourselves louder than the previous. With a chuckle and surprise, he and the other RDC looked at us in amazement. "Good. Now get your damn asses focused and do as you are told. Get the fuck in there!" He loudly encouraged us onward, pointing to the direction of the supply warehouse entrance. One by one, we entered the enormous supply hangar. First, we picked up a large green sea bag, which was used to carry all our issued gears, and then we were asked for our shoe size. "6.5, please," I warmly told the blonde, light-skinned, elder Caucasian issuing lady. With a grin and amazement, as though she never saw a fluent, well-spoken Asian before, she gently dropped the 3 pair of military-issue shoes into my sea bag, a pair of green-striped Reeboks tennis shoe, black dress shoe, and a black boondocker work boots. "Here you go, and good luck, son," she replied smilingly. "Thank you, ma'am." Softly and looking at her warmly, I move onward. As we move on, our head circumference was measured for our Dixie cup and hat sizes. Then our legs, waist, and busts were measured for our uniform and outfit. Onward, socks, belts, 2-pack of 3 Fruit of Loom underwear, t-shirt, swim trunks, shorts, short shorts, silky blue running shorts, gloves, snow gear, pea coats, boots, dungarees, bell-bottom jeans, black wool sweater, and many other items were issued and given to us by the supply workers in the massive supply hangar. We were getting supplies and gear for about 2 hours straight until everyone was done and ready to go. Once each recruit had his gears and necessity, we had to get back into formation and wait for everyone to finish gathering their supply before we made the rest of the way to our living quarters at Ship 13 on the other side of the massive military training base in Great Lakes Den. While in line, we had to stand at attention with the full sea bag next to our right side. Talking wasn't allowed, and we had to endure the heat wave that was enveloping the entire Chicago area that day and for the rest of that summer. I control my shallow breathing by taking long, deep breaths and slowly expelling the unneeded CO2 through my nose. Shortly after everyone was reassembled, we would then, all in 2 lines, nuts to butt, and then march off to our barracks and training and sleeping quarters. That was going to be our home for the next 3 months or so as we go through the rigorous training of Navy boot camp. We were introduced to our recruit division commander, RDCs, at our barracks ship at Ship 13 once we got there. Once we arrived to our assigned marked space in front of our barracks, we were all ordered down into push-up position while they introduced themselves to us. There, the RDC, who were in charge of Company 388 for the next 9 long, grueling weeks of boot camp, there was first class boatswain mate Edenbeck, who had already served over 15 years in the Navy and had been on multiple military ships and aircraft carrier, and who several months later made chief before we graduated from boot camp that fall. Chief Edenbeck had a nice feature about him. He stood about 6 feet tall and had dreamy baby blue eyes on, one can say, of another fellow. He had reminded me of George Michael, the pop icon, before he had came out of the closet, of course, in his Wake Me Up Before You Go videos, of course. He seemed the ladies' type too. I'm sure he was getting ass and pussy everywhere he went. Chief Edbeck just had that aroma about him. Yes, I must admit, he was attractive. Attractive enough to the sinner's eyes and mine. He seemed faithful enough to be to his longtime wife of a dozen year plus. Another RDC was second-class gas turbine system mechanist Tesh. He was the crybaby of the 3 recruit instructor. He complained about everything and punished us for the minor infraction offenses we did. And he was allergic to bee stings, so every time he sees a bee fly by, he would jump and rant, and we all get a laugh out of it. Tesh stood about 5'10" and had a larger than normal bill belly on him. He was married and wore his gold ring firmly. He seemed to be always reddish in the color all over, from all that yelling he did on us, I guess. I found him not to be attractive at all, and I'm sure his wife wasn't enjoying his company either back at home. That's my opinion at the least. I'm sure he was getting ass in one way or another from his significant other then. The last of our RDC was my personal favorite. Second class quartermaster Edwin, who was the coolest and sanest of all of our three RDC, who looked after the recruits more warm-heartedly than the other two that I had mentioned previously. Edwin stood about 5'10" and had a nice trim blond mustache upon his soft cherry lips. He too was married and often would try to feed me, his wife cooking whenever I was doing night duty, watching watches, and when he was doing his round during those times. I'm sure his wife's a lucky woman to have a good, sensitive guy like second class Edwin to be around. The first thing our division commander did to us, or for us, they would like to say, is for our damn good, was having us drop to our stomach and into push-up position. Arms stretched open, back straight and knees off my blacktop, ladies, one of the RDC commanded. We had to be in push-up position while they introduced themselves. It seemed forever while they spoke. They sure took their sweet time telling us who they were, what they did, and what they expected of us. After their proper and comedic introduction, they got us started on tidying up our barracks. Leaving our full sea bag and supply outside atop the blacktop, we all rushed into the dusty, dirty barrack. We had to strip down their living quarters floor to the bare. We surfaced it with new tile, wax it and such, and then we had to assemble our sleeping rack accordingly. 2 columns of beds with about 22 rows on each side. The task of fixing up the living quarters were divided amongst groups of recruits. Some of us painted the wall, and some of us cleaned up the floor and room of debris and trash. We also wiped down the windows and mirror throughout the hall and in the bathroom. I helped with moving the metal bunk bed outside the building and reassembling them back into our living quarters after the floor was retiled, cleaned and dried, and the entire living quarter was ready for reassembly. After all the tasks in the spacer were cleaned and completed, we were given a few-minute break. This is where I first spoke to Shinigami. His face seemed cold, yet inviting. By then his head too had been shaved and bald. I'm sure he'd probably had long, flowing, dark locks before we got to the processing center last night. He was with the stripping crew, who tore up the floor and resurfaced before my crew put all the metal rack back inside. My first word to Shinshin was, Hey, what crew were you on just now?" As he definitely giggled, he replied, "Weren't you paying attention? I was with the floor stripping crew and you were with the rack crew." Like a schoolgirl, he giggled. Like a schoolgirl, his giggle got me to laugh a little. A relief from being yelled at all day by our unwavering RDCs and those around the massive command that were already Navy personnel. I was starting to take a liking to Shinchin then, and took our conversation in stride and allowed nature to take its course. I was somewhat relaxed around this person I'd just met. He seemed nice enough then. Stretching out my right hand over toward him, I said, "I'm Dara. Dara Sock. Nice to meet you." With no hesitation, he answered and firmly shook my hand. "I'm Shinshin. Shinshin Nagami. Nice to meet you too." Abruptly, after our short initial introduction, we were interrupted by our RDCs. "Recruits! Get your damn gears and get your asses in here and set things back how you found it." We both looked toward the RDC direction and moved out abruptly as he demanded. There were several other Asians in Company 388 then, but none was a refugee Cambodian like me. Several were Pinoy, who mistook me for one of them since we had similar features and complexion. They spoke to me in their native tongue, Tagalog language. Even Shinshin mistook me for a Pinoy. Even Shinshin was totally something else. He's a mixture of Japanese and Mutt, as he usually told me as we grew fond of each other. His mother was Japanese and his father was some white Marine asshole who grew up in the Nebraska area and was stationed at U.S. Marine Base in Okinawa, Japan, and he hooked up with his mom. Shinshin's father was an asshole of a former Marine who had taken advantage of Shinshin's poor defenseless mother, Kushina Shinigami. They met at the local bar base where she worked as a teenager then. With our gears and issue supply in hand, we waited for We waited for the next instruction from our RDC, and after our minimal short break, we were all lined up and given our choices of bunks, and then instructions were given on proper folding and preparation of daily gears and supply. Also, more rules and regulations were drilled into our heads and memories then. We were really being grilled that day with many standards. Shinshin and I picked up bunks directly across from each other. Our DC instructed us on how to fold our clothes and how to store them in small cubicle spaces, just like the spaces they have on actual Navy ships. We practically stenciled our names and the last four numbers of our social security number and company number on everything we had and owned then, from our shower slippers to our black handkerchief, either with black or white stencil. Even our issue Fruit of the Loom underwears and socks were stenciled with our information. It was our properties after all. We learned to properly tie our shoes, our issue ties, scarf, and on how to take care of ourselves, from the brushing of our teeth to the washing the back of our balls. We went through 9 weeks of rigorous training, physically and mentally then. We learned to march in groups, run in groups, eat in groups, and we also got punished as a group. Everything we did was everything we did there, everything we did was about group work. Teamwork, asshole. Teamwork, asshole. That's all we hear from our recruit division commander each walking minutes of each day. Teamwork, assholes. We also practiced rifle drills and studied the rules and regulations of naval and military laws and history. We weren't allowed to wear any jewelry or a watch at boot camp, and only the AROC and the RPOC were allowed to wear watches so that way they can keep track of our appointments and duties throughout the day. We had to wear our dog tags at all times, no matter what. In the shower, in our sleep, and during our duties, our dog tags were our lifeline. They would often reminded us of that importance of wearing your dog tag. Each of us were issued two dog tags, which had our full name, social security number, blood type, allergies, and religious preference inscribed on them. These dog tags kept us alert and awake because they would rattle as we marched or made any slight movement. Ironically, at time we would accidentally rattle our tag in synchronized motion, making musical sound as though we were complimenting each other. Each evening, about 30 minutes before bedtime, we were allowed to write letters and shine our dress shoes and boondocker boots. I sometimes wrote letters to the friends I had during high school, usually to Benevolence and Mrs. Humphrey and my high school APE teacher, my high school AP English teacher, and several other teachers I knew, Miss Caldwell. But I never saw Shinshin write any letter or note to anyone. He was hard and focused on one thing, to get through basic then, and it seemed he had no one to write to. As for my newfound friend Shinshin, I never saw him write anything to anyone. He was so strange then, so secluded and kept to himself, but he was hardcore about training. He was the best of all of us in that company of 388, especially when it comes to being physically capable. He wasn't that much taller than me, but yet he was so damn strong, just like the Incredible Hulk. And he was quite in shape, bulking in the right places. He usually had his face in the rules and regulation books. He kept his mouth shut most of the time and only talked when asked and spoken to, usually answering the RDC's question and requests of him during their inquiry of military naval rules, regulation, and general order. Shinshin knew them all by heart, knew them better than anyone else in our entire company. We were all quite conniving then. We learned tricks and trades as you grow older in weeks and during training. We all learned fast and always keeping for the easy way to do things if we knew we could get away with it. That's what we all did, except for Shinshin, of course. He was so hardcore about the rules and regulation then. I do miss him, though, for his sheer honesty, sadly remembering how straightforward Shinshin was. Also, I never saw Shinshin attend church or services with us on Sundays to worship or just go out of the barracks for some needed fresh air, even to get away from all the rules and instructions that were constantly yelled and screamed at us. He just kept to himself and kept his cool. He wasn't a person with much words then, although he and I had several conversations together throughout our training and time spent then at basics. Shinshin usually got to get away from the barrack life and to look at some female ass around and about this massive military base command then, while he was on his mail run. Shinshin usually went to church really, since he was the male petty officer then. Shinshin usually went to church really early. He was more religious than I was, so I had learned from him then. Before anyone awoke on the Sundays, he usually did those sort of things on his own. I'm sure he had a lot to talk about to the Lord then when he went off on his own like that. For as long as I could have known Shinshin, he often prayed to God for guidance and to watch over those who are in his life. Shinshin was secretly dealing with God directly then. Thank you for listening. This is the end of chapter 99. Be on the lookout for chapter 100, titled Duties, Jobs, Classification, and Routines. This is Do, Ra, me, and I'll see you later. Thank you.